These might be the ones. These might be the highest quality white sneakers out there, but we won't know until we cut them in half. Well, we're closing in on the end of the white sneaker series. We got one more brand after this one. We got the finale video where we'll compare all of them and kind of draw some conclusions. And then we got the resole, how to resole a pair of white sneakers, like the Common Projects and any of these other brands. And then Mocktober's coming, and some of the mocktails have started rolling in, and I am so excited about it. I just like, it's like Christmas every time I get a new package in and it's a mocktail. This is probably the most excited I've been for a video or series or any video in a long time, so it's gonna be really cool. And I turned 30 today. Today's my birthday, so I don't know how I feel about that. But let's talk a little bit about this brand, because it's got kind of a cool history. So Goral has been around for 80 years. It started in Poland, and it's a 4-generation family-run business, which is really cool. And now they're based out of England, and all their shoes are made by hand in England by a 40-man crew, which is really unique in the footwear world. And they also sponsor this video. So if you want to save 20% off a pair of these shoes, use the code ROSEANVIL20 at checkout and save yourself 20%, which is a lot, especially for a higher price item like these. Now let's go over the information on these shoes. So the brand is Goral, the model is Mellor, and the color I got is white, and they retail for 315 pounds on their site, and they're handmade in England. So what makes these shoes so special and why am I so excited about them? Well, if you remember back to the Common Projects video, for $400, I was expecting to see a leather insole and a higher construction quality than what we saw. And through this white sneaker series, we saw that a lot of the Italian brands around that $200 price range were about the same quality as the Common Projects, and at least for me, I kind of concluded that the Common Projects were overpriced and not the highest quality shoe you could make for a minimalist white sneaker. And when Goral reached out, they're like, hey, we saw that Common Projects video, and our shoes are what you're looking for. So there's two things about these shoes that make them special amongst the other shoes that we've compared. The first one is that it's finally we've got the leather insole. A full grain vegetable tan leather insole. Pretty much all the other ones have had a fiberboard, which is totally fine. It's a really good material for that $200, $250 price range. And we see it in boots, we see it in shoes, all in that price range, but we've yet to see a leather insole, kind of like what we've seen with like the Knicks boots and the higher end boots. And finally, Gorals have them. And the benefits of a leather insole is it breaks into your foot, it kind of molds the shape of your foot, it's a longer lasting material, it doesn't kind of break down after flexing a bunch of times, it absorbs your sweat better, it doesn't stink as fast, and it's just a more traditional way of making a shoe or boot. The next thing is that inside of here, you might have noticed a stitching in there. So this is a Blake stitch, and a Blake stitch is a stitch that attaches the upper that's rolled underneath of the insole, and it sews the two parts together. And so why is that significant? Because when it comes to the longevity of a shoe, if it's just a throwaway shoe, it doesn't really matter. But if you're expecting to have a shoe that you spend a lot of money on last a decently long time, having a Blake stitch in there is important, because after you really wear a shoe for a long time, that leather, that upper that's tucked underneath, if it's only held in by glue, after flexing, it can kind of loosen up and it can cause lumps underneath of there. And when it comes to resoling it, as that cobbler pulls the shoe off, it can separate, and you're just kind of hoping that the cobbler is going to get it back to its original shape and form. So when you get your shoe back, it can be the wrong size, it can be shaped the wrong way, and you can end up with a completely different shoe. But the Blake stitch prevents all of that, and it just basically makes your shoe last longer, and it makes it a more easily resolable shoe. And that's why you see it in boots a lot more often and in dress shoes. So Goral claims to be the very first sneaker to use a Blake stitch. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I haven't seen it anywhere else. So those are the two most important things, and the two things I'm really excited about. As for the other parts of the shoe, starting with the sole, working our way up, Goral just barely changed to this outsole. It's a pretty unique outsole. You know, most of the other brands use margum. This has kind of got a different look to it. It seems to be a similar compound and feel to the margum. I guess we'll see when we cut it in half. As for the upper material, so this is a 1.4 millimeter Italian calfskin by the same tanneries that most of these guys get their high-end leather from, the Mastroto group, I think is what it's called. It's a chrome tan, full grain, and one thing that's worth noting is they roll all the edges on here, so you don't really see any raw edges except for just a little bit on the lining leather. Then as for the lining leather, it's a 0.7 millimeter calfskin chrome tanned lining leather, pretty similar to the rest of them. Then we go to the insert. So this is a molded foam rubber insert. Benefit of this type of insert is over time, it starts to mold to the shape of your foot. So not only is the leather insole gonna mold to your foot, but this is as well, and it's gonna give you that cushioning and custom fit that most people are looking for. And it's removable, so if you don't like this type or you want a thinner or thicker insert, you can swap it out. And as for what else is in the shoe, these guys do a really good job at breaking down exactly how this shoe is built, and I'm pretty sure it's got a leather counter, at least based off their website, and they've got a felted midsole which absorbs the sweat and kind of gives you an extra layer of cushioning. But I guess we'll see when we get it cut in half. So that leads us to the cut in half. So let's get to it. Okay, we got it cut in half. I definitely should have used the bandsaw, but let's see what's inside. So as you saw, I cut it in half and also just kind of tore the sole off so I could show you guys a little bit better with the Blake stitching and kind of how that all works. But let's quickly go through these layers, and because we kind of already know what's in here, but there was a couple extra layers I wasn't aware of. So we got the outsole, then we got that felt layer that we talked about that just helps absorb the sweat, gives you an extra layer of cushioning and extra layer between you and the ground. And then we got a layer of compressed cardboard, and we saw that in all the other shoes as well. And I think the reason that people put that in the shoes is to equally compress the little cells inside of the heel of the outsole. So that makes sense that they put it in there. And then we got the leather insole and the leather counter, and then we kind of talked about everything else. So now if we look at the torn apart one, when I tore this apart, you saw probably that this ripped down through here, and I was pretty brutal with it. A cobbler would probably put a solvent down in there to help loosen that up. And that's part of the problem with resoling a pair of these shoes, because any cobbler is gonna put a little bit of solvent down on the inside of there so that when they pull this apart, that they're not ripping apart the upper like I did. The good thing is it makes it easier to tear this apart, but it also loosens up the upper that's tucked underneath, and that's kind of where you run into that problem. Versus if you've got a Blake stitch here, that Blake stitch allows you to keep that form and the shape and the size exactly the same because you've got a stitch holding it on. It doesn't matter how much solvent you put down there, it'll always keep its same shape and form. That's why it's so important for a shoe that you're planning on resoling to have a Blake stitch, because it makes all the difference. And it's a really good sign of quality, especially with this leather insole or the lasting board. You know, I'm really impressed with these shoes. I think these are the best built shoes that we've torn apart for this White Sneaker series yet. If you disagree with me, let me know, but I think it's pretty indisputable. But we still got one more left. And many of you in the last video and in my DMs and an email have just been blowing me up about Thursday Boots, they just released their sneaker and it looks really nice. And I've been trying to get a hold of them to get them to sponsor a video before the end of September. I sent them a DM, I sent them an email. I've tried every avenue and I can't get through to them. So if you guys want to see Thursday sponsor a video for this white sneaker series, hit them up because I can't get a hold of them. So thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks for checking out Goral, and thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Don't forget you can save the 20% by using the code RoseAnvil20 at checkout. And yeah, I think that's it. See ya. Happy birthday to me.